All right, so today is the eve of the Hay, the 5th day of Tishrei, right? And we are studying Shmuel I, chapter 14, verse 31. We are now about a year into the term of Shaul. I think they're burned. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah. So we're about a year into the term of King Saul, a year out of 2.5 years, and it's the end. It's the 1 day. It's the 1 day war against the Philistines, which was instigated by his son Yehonatan, who killed the governor, and then. Sort of by mistake also started the war. They came to retaliate. They didn't want to start really. Yonatan went in and wiped out the front unit that they sent to reconnaissance, and that started the war. The war was mainly conducted by God alone, by infusing fear and terror into the hearts of all of the Philistines. And as a result of this terror, they started killing each other for no apparent reason, and a clear miracle. And that is what won the war for us. And then we joined, the Jews joined in, and not only the 600 troops that Saul massed in front of the as the only people who agreed to remain with him and fight, but all of the other Jews that were hiding in the holes in the ground came out, and a lot of people who were servants of the Philistines in their camp, in their midst, they saw that the Philistines are losing it. They joined with us and wiped a whole bunch of them. Now, Saul took it personally, and says he wanted to avenge all of the terrible things that the Philistines did to the Jewish people, but he said it in a way that sort of was more personal. He said, "V'nikamti me'oivai," and I'm going to avenge for my enemies, not the enemies of God, not the enemies of the Jews, my enemies. Very, very personal. And he...
31?
31. We didn't read yet. This is just a summary of how we got here. And so in order to prevent the Jewish soldiers from partying and stopping the battle early, he decreed that nobody will taste anything that day, that they all should fast and should fight. His son Yonatan, who started the war and started the war by not being with the rest of the camp, didn't hear it. And as they were chasing the Philistines, they were passing by a field full of sugarcane and honey or sugarcane or whatever it was. And he tasted, because he was really, he felt he was hungry. He felt like he can't take it anymore. He felt that he's losing his eyesight from the terrible hunger that he was in. So he just took with the cane, with the staff that he had, a little bit and tasted as they were going through. And then people were shocked. Says, didn't you know that we're not supposed to do that? And he was, I'm phrasing it in a disrespectful way. It wasn't a smart idea, to do that. It's not right to do it. To disallow people, to decree that people will not eat during the battle, because naturally speaking, if you don't eat, you can fight less. And had you eaten, the productivity would be much better during the battle. So that is where we stopped. Now, the question we were discussing whether Saul really had the authority he had the authority to decree that, obviously, to tell the people what to do. He's the king. But Yonatan didn't hear it. But he heard, so he didn't agree with that. As he was making the people swear that they're not going to eat, the people said, yeah, okay, we're not going to eat. Yonatan was not there, so he didn't agree. So is that binding him? We don't know. It's probably not. And is that he said, don't eat bread, which indicates that you're going to sit for a meal. So taking a little bit of a swipe with a little bit of sugar or honey it's not a meal. So either way you look at it, he didn't do anything terrible.
And this describes something that he did before he got the word. In other words, he tasted it
he
first.
Tasted it, and then
He was told, so maybe he didn't eat anything after that.
He did, right. So the situation was that he ate, and then he realized, he criticized his father's idea, which we will see that this whole interaction, whatever happened, later in this story, which we will learn today, caused a level of animosity between Saul and Yonatan. Saul resented Yonatan from that point on, and eventually called him, you're a rebel. Anyway, so let's rejoin 31. ויקו ביום ההוא בפלישתים ממכמש איילונה ויעף העם מאוד. Now, the people, as soon as they heard that it wasn't such a good idea to not eat, the wind they went out of their sails a little bit, and they became more tired, because when somebody is telling you that you're fasting for nothing, it's much more difficult to fast. So nonetheless, they were really smiting the Philistines from Michmash towards Ayalon. You know where Netivei Ayalon is? It's right, the main artery in Tel Aviv. It's a highway in Tel Aviv. So from Michmash to that, about that highway, because that highway is used to be a stream that's called Nachal Ayalon. So this is from Michmash there. Michmash is near Bet El, near Shechem over there. So it's a significant distance. And so they did it in one day, and they were very tired as a result. Now, what happens next is because the Philistines, as we may recall earlier, brought into the fight 36,000 professional soldiers, plus hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of other foot soldiers who were not professionals, just a mob. And they brought with them a lot of food, because they don't have this fasting during the battle thingy, and they need to eat. So they brought a lot of cattle and a lot of lamb, a lot of food. Now, as we won the battle, we got all of the booty. We got all the food, all those animals. Now, the rule is that during a war, we are allowed to eat anything. A soldier during a war does not necessarily need to look for a kosher home when they are starving. They can eat anything, even pork.
Really?
Yes, that's the halacha in Rambam. So during the war, if you don't have anything else, obviously, if you have, an official issued, burger from rations from the army, which is b'ashgachat rabanut, you should eat that. But if you don't have anything else, and you, landed in a house that has non-kosher food, and you have no choice, you can, no problem. That's the halacha in the Rambam. Now, in order to prevent as much as possible this from happening, the booty, whatever we get during the war, traditionally was shared with God. We dedicated it to the wind, in honor of God who provided us with the wind. We dedicate it in a way that we sort of share. How does that happen? It was a korban shlamim. Korban shlamim is a korban that a small portion of it is being sacrificed to God. The rest, the owner who gets to eat it. So, if we bring an animal as a korban, there are rules of what, how you shecht it, how you treat it, what you do with it. It cannot be a pork, it cannot be. You cannot take a pig, and so it was done in such a way, so as much as possible to avoid eating non-kosher food. So if we got a lamb, and you have a unit of guys that got a couple of lambs, and they say, okay, let's now sacrifice it to God. So they'll be more careful as to how they treat it. And as a result, it's going to be kosher. And as a result, they'll eat kosher food. That was generally the idea of how we did it. Now, the people here, because they were prevented from eating, they didn't have the coffee, they didn't have the donut, and there were nothing, They couldn't take an apple as they were running. Zero. It's called bulmus. They were just...
Starving.
What?
Starving.
Yes, ravished. Crazy, crazy hungry. And they were, jumping, and especially after they heard from Yehonatan that there is not such a good reason not to eat altogether. So why are you driving us bananas, Mr. King? So they went to the booty and they started slaughtering it. Now, so let's read it. Vayat ha'am al hashalah. So the people were jumping. They were really, grabbing the booty. And what did they take? Tzon ubakar. They took lamb and sheep. Ubnei bakar. So they took the cattle and the calves. Now, that in and of itself is not allowed. We have one of the laws that we read is that we're not allowed to take right. You cannot take a mother to slaughter a mother and a calf at the same time. The same day. And it seems like they did it. Now, what's the big deal? It's allowed. Number one, it's allowed because it's in the middle of a battle, and you can eat pork. So definitely you can do that. You can eat a mother and a calf, a cow and a calf. But also, it was mayhem, and you didn't really know so easily who's who. It's easily, you can detect when a calf is going together with the cow, but when they're all running around, it's not as easily detectable. So there is a way to look at it in a lenient way and say no, that it's not a problem. The other problem is that they took it and they slaughtered it and they started eating it without bringing it as a shlamim, as a sacrifice to God. Sort of skipping that they allowed, because nobody says that, if you go to war, you have to bring sacrifice for all the booties that you get. But that was the idea, that was the custom, because you wanted to thank God. After all, they saw a few hours ago the big miracle that happened, that suddenly the Philistines started fighting each other. So, you should thank God, but they didn't do it. So, vayishchatu arza, so they just slaughtered those animals. Vayochal ha'am al adam. Now, on top of it, they didn't take the blood out. And so there are two opinions. What does it mean? You have to take the blood out of the animal because we're not allowed to eat blood. That's number one. Number two, the blood of a shlamim, of a sacrifice, has to be brought on the altar, and only after the blood of the animal is being brought onto the altar, then the rest of the animal is allowed to be eaten. But here they didn't make it sacrifice altogether, or if they did, they didn't wait till the sacrifice was really handled properly and the blood would be brought to the altar, and they started eating before. So it was a little bit of a balagan that was caused by the fact that they were fasting. So, Vayagidu LaShaul, so the word came to Saul. Vayagidu LaShaul lemor, Hinei ha'am chotim laHashem lechol al adam. They said that the people are sinning because they are eating the sacrifice before it was brought, the piece that belongs to the altar brought there, which is the blood. Vayomer bagad, and they said it's treason. Golu elai hayom even gdola. And so you bring me today a big stone, a big rock. This is a very strange pasuk, but let's just take it apart and try to understand. So, first of all, he says it's treason. So why is it treason? You're allowed to eat, you're not kosher. So what's the treasonous situation here? Comes with the next words. He says that bring me today. They started eating before sundown. And he told them, don't eat today anything. But they sort of finished the battle, or they felt that they finished the battle, and they started eating before sunset. So he told them, I mean, it's treasonous. You're doing something wrong because I told you not to eat, and now you're eating. Not only you're eating the wrong way. So so stop this and bring me this one stone. And the rabbis are saying that this stone was the basis, the first stone of the altar that Saul put together, because he wanted to thank God for the win. So he wanted to bring the sacrifice properly. You need an altar for it. So he put together an altar. He put together an altar as one big stone. Now we will see later in a few verses that he completed after he needed an emergency quick stone, so he brought one stone, and he couldn't finish the entire altar because people were just needing to eat. So he used that one stone first. Now, the difference between an altar that's made with one stone or multiple stones is huge. An altar that's made with one stone is called matzeva, a monument. And there is a very strong prohibition to create a monument, because a monument is an altar that's made out of one stone is something that the idol worshippers used to use, and this is something that's not. It says in Dvarim that it's very look unfavorably in the eyes of God to have. So we are allowed only to have altars with multiple stones. So that's why later on he didn't call this a mizbeach. He didn't call it an altar yet. He just called it a big stone, because he didn't want to assign it as an altar yet, because it's not allowed. Now, just as an aside, what is the difference between one stone and multiple stones in an altar? What's the big deal? So I saw something right earlier, very interesting. We see at the time when Jacob was running away from Esau, he was sleeping, right? And he had the stone. It was one stone, and he made that stone an altar, and that's the stone Even Hashtiyah. That's the altar that's on Mount Moriah, right? And it's called over there matzeva. It's called a monument, and that was good. God wasn't making a fuss about that, right? And then, at the time after we went out of Egypt in the desert, before we got the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu built altars, and he built a matzeva, 3 of them. And again, there was no fuss made. Everything is okay. Only afterwards, after we received the Torah, suddenly this is not favorable in the eyes of God. What's the difference? Why it was favorable, a week ago, why is it not favorable now? What's wrong? So I saw something which really puts this whole idea, makes a lot of sense here. When an individual Before Matan Torah, we were a nation of individuals. You know, we had Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and we had his sons. We were not a nation. We were individuals. We came out of a family. So when a pious person, an individual that was sent by God to establish the whole godliness in the world, to bring Judaism to the world, but as an individual, it's okay for them to have an altar with one stone because, you know, that's a monument that they created for God. It's their contribution to the world, and you know, they're one person, and they put one stone and they dedicate it to God. That's fine. But after Matan Torah, when we became a nation of multiple people, and we have to operate as a minyan, we have to operate as a kehillah, as a community. We don't operate alone anymore. We're all tied together. Arevim ze bazeh. We're all one. So it's not favorable to have a runaway individual that will do an altar with one stone. The actual altar has to be done with multiple stones to indicate that we're all together coming as individual pieces to create one unit of an altar. Now, what happened here with Saul? Part of the problem with Saul was that he was a loner. He started as a loner, and he was making a lot of decisions as a loner. So he ended up creating this mizbeach to sacrifice to God with one stone. He couldn't even get multiple stones together. He's not criticized for it, but it's sort of a telling situation that he ended up with a sacrifice of one stone here.
Did he know that he was supposed to use multiple stones? Or
at this point, he needed them to just stop, you know, grabbing and slaughtering and going crazy over the food. You know, it's like a shul kiddush after a long davening, you know. You have to stop, you have to wait for kiddush, you know.
the fasting was for one day, wasn't it?
Yes, but they were fighting and they were going from, you know, a big distance. It was not a day in a park.
They weren't sitting in shul.
Yeah, it was not sitting in shul and sleeping. So nobody ever. Vayomer Shaul. I tried to make sure it's blowing that nobody's listening. Vayomer Shaul, putzu ba'am, scattered around the nation. V'amarteh lahem, and you should get the word out. And the word is that you should bring agishu elai ish shoro v'ish seyehu. Bring me each individual person should bring their ox and their lamb, and v'shchatetem bazeh, and you should slaughter with this. What does it mean, this? We'll see in a second. V'shchatetem bazeh, the rabbis are saying that he was actually teaching them how to do proper shchita, how to do proper slaughtering of an animal. There is one of the halachot is that the knife that the shochet is using has to be checked by someone else who is qualified to certify the knife. It cannot be just the shochet just take it on their own. You need a bodek. You need someone who checks the knife. So he produced a knife and said, here, this is what you're going to use because this is a proper slaughtering of the animal. You need to use a specific knife. The knife has to be checked. So
is that true in
yes,
today?
Yes.
It's a two-man operation?
You need to check the knife before and after.
I thought the shochet does that with his own fingernail.
So they are the shochet is doing that, but there is afterwards, especially with the cattle, it needs to be done by another person.
And the knife has to be a certain length, or just a certain sharpness?
It needs to be. I don't know the
It
halachot.
says something about the word bazeh being 14, and that's equal.
Yeah, 14 fingers.
Yeah, there are a lot of halachot that has to do with it. I'm not a shochet. I never learned it, so I can't talk about it.
It ties into the word bazeh.
Yeah, right. This is that, right. It needs to be a certain length, and there is a different opinion whether the edge should be two sides or only one side. So, and there was a big controversy. The rabbis that said that you need one side, that said that two sides is not kosher animal, and vice versa. It was a big.
Hadn't they been killing animals since Matan Torah?
They did, but at this point where
So,
they.
I mean, they're saying that Shaul was the only one who knew how to do it.
They did, but it was not common. It was not as common because it was expensive. And apparently they were not careful with this at this point. So he taught them an additional halacha that, they have to be careful with that. V'achaltem v'lo techtau l'Hashem. So you should do, this is the procedure, and this is how you should do it, and you should do it here on this altar, on this stone, and you're not going to be considered sinners. Le'echol et adam, so because you should also spill the blood and not eat it.
It says El Hadam.
Le'echol el adam, next to the dam, right next to where you sacrifice the blood. And so what they did, vayagishu kol ha'am ish oro beyado halayla vayishchetu sham. So that operation started during the day, but they went into the night. And they went into the night, and they kept they kept the slaughterhouse over there open all night, which is also something special, because usually korbanot, sacrifices, are not allowed to be brought at night. So some say that what they brought was not actually a sacrifice, and some say that they brought a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice of a private animal and not an animal that was dedicated first. It needed to be, somehow it ended up being allowed to do it at night. So that's also a whole discussion in the Gemara. Anyway, so after that operation, I guess towards the morning, Vayiven Shaul mizbeach laHashem, oto echel livnot mizbeach laHashem. So Shaul completed the construction of the altar, which started with that one big stone, and now it's assigned the word Mizbeach. Before it was not assigned the word Mizbeach because it was one stone, was not really a legit Mizbeach, was not a legitimate altar. And this was the first of many that he built. Now, when he built it, people used it for the duration of his term to sacrifice to God. His term lasted 2.5 years, so it's only a year and a half later that he was killed already. And then, very soon thereafter, the individual altars were disallowed, and the only place that you were allowed to bring an animal to God was in the temple. But his altars remained for many years to come as a monument. People were not using it, but it was known to be the altar of Saul in many, many places. So this is the first one. Okay, so that's the end of the battle, or so we thought. Vayomer Shaul, but Shaul saw that an opportunity here. He thought that we got them, we got the Philistines. They are after us for all these years, and they are now running away, so let's just finish them off. If we stop now, they'll come back in a while, which actually happened. A few months later, Goliath came back, full force, and challenged again Saul. So he wanted to chase them and decimate them completely and kick them out or kill them. So so he said at night, it wasn't morning, I made a mistake, it wasn't morning yet, it was still night. He says, let's chase them throughout the night. Now that you ate, let's continue now, don't stop now, and let's fight. Now the problem is, and we should just take their booty, more of what they have, ador haboker, until sunrise. V'lo nashir b'hem ish, and we should not be leaving any living soul among them. ויאמרו כל הטוב בעיניך עשה. So he was consulting with the people, and the people say, yeah, sure, why not? Do whatever you want. Which is also strange, a king should not be, if you're leading a war, you should tell the people what to do. At this point, you're not just asking. This is not time for democracy, for town hall meeting. Should we go decimate the Philistines now at 4 o'clock in the morning? But there was a problem with that because a war should not be fought at night. That's one of the rules. That if a war, unless instructed by God specifically, should not be fought at night. Because night is not a time where you can really win one easily, I guess. And
They didn't have lights.
and they didn't have, of course, they didn't have night goggles, night vision, right? So, but it's a halakha. It's not just a convenient. It's a halakha. You should not. So he decided to ask. The people agreed, but he wasn't sure. He wanted very much. So he said, "Vayomer HaKohen." No. So he wanted very much, and the people agreed, but the high priest didn't agree. The high priest who was there, Achia, who knew the rules and knew the halachot, and felt that it might be risky at this point to sort of restart a battle, because the battle, calmed down. People were eating and slaughtering, and it was a pause, a serious pause of a few hours. Now to start something new, it's a whole new battle. A whole new battle, you really need to ask God all over again, should we start it or not? Because it's not an automatic approval to, but it's not like that they have the authority to launch a war whenever they want it. So, Vayomer HaKohen nikriva alom el Elokim. So the ark was a little back in the camp where they left. So the priest says, let's go back to the ark, in front of the ark, because that's where you're allowed to ask, and let's ask with the breastplates. And so he was sort of launching an objection. So Saul understood that there is a good point here. So Vayish'al Shaul ba'Elokim. So Saul asked two questions. The first question that he asked personal questions. Should I go after the Philistines? As if it's his own personal war, that he's conducting here. There was no answer. So then he asked the right question. Will God give the Philistines in the hands of the Jews? So he asked as the leader of the Jews, should the Jews go to war and they will win? But there was still no answer. By Yom HaHu, on that day there was no answer. So I guess they waited the whole day, because it was he started at night, right? And they were asking, or they were waiting for sunrise, or they were still asking at night, or whatever it was. The whole day, that day, the next day, they didn't have an answer. So not having an answer was threw him off a little bit, and it was not something he expected. Vayomer Shaul, kshu alom kol pinot ha'am, ud'u re'u b'mei ha'chatat hazot hayom. So Saul understood that there is something is the matter. If he doesn't get an answer, he's the leader of the Jews. He's going to war against the Philistines. It's not that he's asking some outlandish thing to do. He's not asking to, build a palace for himself. It's something to save the Jews from the Philistines. And the war just happened a day before. There was a big miracle. So in his logic, why shouldn't it be? And the fact that he didn't hear anything, not yes, not no, not maybe, nothing, he felt that something was done wrong during this operation. And there is now Hester Panim, there is a hiddenness here. God is hiding himself from him, and he wanted to fix it. He wanted to understand what happened. So he called all the important people, all the leader, Pinot Ha'am, that's the cornerstones of the nation. What?
Pillars.
The pillars, it's not pillars, it's corners. Pinot is corners, but yeah, it means in modern language, pillars. And says, so let's see what we all did wrong and figure out what happened. So again, it's a funny way of managing. On the one hand, it's his private war. On the other hand, he's asking the people all kinds of questions and consulting with them every step of the way. It's not king-like, at least not what we used to in Hollywood movies. That's not a king act, and that's not. We saw later that's not how the rest of the kings acted. So he said, "Ki chai Hashem hamoshia et Israel, ki im yeshno b'Yonatan b'ni ki mot yamut ve'en oneh mikol ha'am." So he says he realized that something was wrong. At that point, he knew that Yonatan might have done something wrong. Maybe the fact that he started the war was wrong. Maybe something, he had a good suspicions, because this whole operation started with Yonatan killing the governor and then starting the war. I don't know if he knew that Yonatan ate or not. I don't think he knew. It doesn't appear that he knew that. But he felt that something was done wrong. And he says, listen, even if it's my son that did something wrong, he's going to die, and I'm not gonna show favoritism to anyone. Now, keep in mind that this is a strange thing that happened here, because in the first battle, this is the second battle of Saul. The first battle happened with Ammon, Nachash Ammoni, right after the inauguration, and he was very successful. And a lot of people, after, there were a bunch of people, a nice group of people that were saying, who is this guy that's becoming our king? Who the heck is he to tell us what to do? They were laughing at him. They were not agreeable with the whole situation. And people were pushing Saul to kill those people. So there is law and order, that's, you can't. If you have one guy that doesn't, a group of people that don't listen, they open their own militia, whatever, they decide not to listen to the laws of the land, laws of the king, they have to be wiped out, so the rest of the people, there will be order. So then Saul said, no, it's a happy day, we just won a war, nobody's going to die today, and he let them go. And now he's he realized that something was wrong there, so now he's going all the way to the other side. Even my son, I'm going to kill him, no problem. Strange. We see already that there is something between he and Yonatan change is happening here. It seems that the king should be the one calling the shots, and here we saw that Yonatan ended up calling the shots, not intentionally so, but Saul already felt that something is shaky here. So he right away declared that Yonatan, he will die, no problem. And there was silent in the people, silent in the crowd. Yonatan was a pious person, was a very, very, very good person, and one of the people that the Midrash is praising, that he was super pious. And people knew how much he contributed to the win, to the victory here. So there was silence. Everybody was dumbfounded, basically. ויאמר כל העם אתם תהיו לעבר אחד ואני ויונתן בני יהיה לעבר אחד ואמרו העם אל שאול הטוב בעיניך עשה. So he said, let's make a raffle, let's make a goral and see who, again with the breastplates, and let's see who's, not with the breastplates, I'm sorry, a goral, a raffle. So they put together, what? A lottery, right. They put together a lot of settles, no?
Lots.
A lot of what?
Straw?
No, lots. Notes. And they say a bunch of them said that is guilty, and a bunch of them had nothing written on them. Lots and lots of them, and they put them in a one of those lottery things, and in a bucket, in a fishbowl, and they said let's do a lot, and they started. Said let's see if the problem is in the leadership or in the people. Let's just split it and see. So he and Yonatan were the leadership. So they will be one side of the lot, and the rest of the people will be the other side. Very similar to what happened with Achan after the war on Jericho. If you recall, what happened during the war in Jericho, there was God was telling Joshua that no one should touch the booty, no one should take anything, and the whole city should be burned and go to pot. And Achan took some clothing and some loaves of silver or gold, and as a result, the next battle, people died. It was not successful. So he knew that something was done wrong. So God told him, do a lot, and he did a lot and found this guy was doing something wrong. So Saul, God didn't tell Saul to do that. There was no conversations with God. God was basically silent at this point. But he thought, let me do the same thing. And that's a good idea that happened 400 years ago. Let's try it again. So he was... So he threw the lot. So then Saul was keep praying. He realized that something is wrong, that he's not getting answers. So he kept praying to God and says, "Please, God, help me here with this lot, and let's resolve this impasse. Let's resolve the situation here. We're stuck." So the lot came. First of all, Yehonatan took settle, and the people took, and then Saul took the last one. So both Yehonatan and Saul picked up a note that says guilty, and everybody else picked up a note that says not guilty. So he knew that something is going on here. So obviously they were both at fault of something, and he didn't know what. Now, this lot was not done with the instruction of God, so the results are not really sort of legitimate, but it is, but it's not. It's not a for sure thing. From the perspective of the halachic perspective of the commentaries, it's a questionable lot. From his perspective, it's it worked. It's not that it was inconclusive. It was conclusive. It's me and you. So then Shaul says, you know what? If it's me and you, let's see between us who is at fault. So then they did a smaller lot just between him and Saul, and Yehonatan and Saul, and Yehonatan was caught. So the rabbi says that you can think that he was caught because he ate, but he really wasn't. He didn't know. And he didn't eat all that much. And it was, but maybe what I found most palatable to my little brain is that because he was not really supportive of his father's move, even though he felt that the move was wrong, he was not really supportive of the father's move, so he was caught. But he didn't really sin, but it was a bump in the road. So we will see. He ended up, Saul wanted to kill him, and the people protected him, and he ended up not dying. But the fact that he was caught in this situation is because he was not respectful enough of his father. So Saul is pressing Yehonatan, Agida li mea asita. So Yehonatan told him, I just tasted just the tip of the staff, a little bit of honey. And he says, and I'm ready to die. He didn't say I made a mistake. He still didn't think he did something wrong. But he says, you're the king. You want to kill me? Go ahead. I'm here. I did that. Kill me. I'm ready to die. So Saul was ready to do it. Vayomer Saul, ko yaseh Elokim v'ko yosif, ki mot tamut Yonatan. He says he was, strengthening again, vowing again to kill his son the second time. Crazy, It's a person should be shuddered at that point, right? But no, go ahead, you'll die. So then the people stopped Shaul. The people stopped Saul, which means that the people can really push the king to change their decrees. That a rule of a king is important and strong, but it's not like the rule of God. the people, there is some democracy in the monarchy. You know what?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it's just a little democracy in the monarchy. So, Vayomer Amel Shaul, how can you, the people told Saul, how can you kill Yonatan? Yonatan Yamut, he is, Asher Asa Yeshua Gdula Zot L'Israel, he saved us. He is like our Arik Sharon in the Yom Kippur War. He was the hero. And you're telling me that now you're going to kill him? No way. Chalila, God forbid, Chai Hashem mipol misa'arat rosho arza, ki im Elokim, asa hayom hazeh vayifduam et Yonatan v'lo met. So he says, God forbid that he's going to lose even one hair from his head, because God made this whole victory on his account. So they redeemed it. How did they redeem him? We don't know. But the rabbis are guessing that maybe they convinced Saul to go to the rabbis and to annul his vow, when he swore to kill, or he said he promised to kill or decided to kill. Go to the rabbis and resolve it, and let them they find a way out for you. And that's what happened. And Yonatan didn't die, and we'll finish the chapter next time.